pay the town the taxes. So either way, the legislation that was passed was to clarify and to make it very clear, but there has been some towns that feel that they have the right to change the class underneath it. So after court's over, whatever happens there, or legislation-wise, you can't ask me to sign something, give you the right to allow you to change the taxes. Instead of agreeing that you can come back and reevaluate. Our agreement right now is really what we negotiated a year ago to the T. We didn't change anything. And we had a lot of these conversations. The other thing that's important that we want to be clear, the property, the underlying property, does go up in tax value as the rest of the property goes up in tax value. So it's taxed at rural residential right now, and it's so much per thousand. And you change your taxes and you change all the rest of the land in town up, this agreement does not get affect that. You can raise the taxes on the property, but you can't go and say it's a commercial site now and raise it. That wouldn't, number one, that wouldn't be the spirit of the agreement. The agreement's for stabilism, to know exactly what we have to pay for the town, and it wouldn't be the right thing to do after we negotiate the agreement.
So the spirit of the agreement that you had with these other communities, then they find out later that it was a detriment to them to do it. That's why it's being litigated, correct?
It's only a couple of people that changed it to try to change the underlying property. And they've met with OER, and they just decided that they're going to fight that issue, that the underground property can change with the use on it. There's only a few towns. There's a lot of other towns that are following the law very clear of what they're following.
I think what I said earlier, hopefully through the administration we can get more information back from them or from the legal side, what's going on in the court system.
So I have a question. So I wasn't here last year. Sounds like this was already agreed upon. Do we have that? Like, this is what it sounded like you're saying. So is this agreement here? Was this the agreement that was agreed upon last year? Because to my knowledge, we haven't agreed upon anything.
No, so last year when the council and three other people were on the council last year, we talked in depth about the tax treaty. We had multiple meetings. We talked about the process and everything. And then there was a draft tax stabilization agreement that was given through the process, the public process and everything a year ago. That was the same agreement that you have today. The difference, the only thing that we were under the intent that we're coming back to finalize what the assets are. So we showed you one blanket agreement that had 9 companies all in one. So what we've done is only taken each one and separated it. So that ensures that each entity is paying their portion of the taxes. And the other thing we changed is took it from, the major changes went from 25 to a 20-year term. Because the town couldn't go into a tax tree, and I don't believe and then there was some other stuff that the lawyers worked out, but the agreement that you have is the same exact agreement that if you looked at the town's records that was handed to you almost.
So is it possible to get some of that info from when this was discussed last year? Because all I have is just this first draft of this agreement, or then the minutes, or for Paul and I. Because I mean, you're asking us to make this decision based on discussions that took place a year ago, and the meeting minutes are great and all, but you know, I'm blind to this. You know, I'm not feeling comfortable voting on something that, whenever this comes, not knowing the full picture of it, and just like, you know, nameplate capacity could decrease. Why can't the town have a provision in the agreement to hedge itself in the event that the law did change down the road, or that the law was upheld and that the town does have the ability to tax the land differently? It's still a business. The town's still a business, so it should have that option too, just like you would want that if you were on the other side.
So I guess I would answer this way. I'm happy to send you the earliest version that was sent to the town. There was also a PowerPoint presentation that I looked at that had been given at the town that I used as the basis for this to make sure there was nothing that was promised in that presentation that didn't get incorporated into this agreement. So I'm happy to provide you with both of those. I guess I will respectfully disagree. I don't think the town is a business. I think it's really something different. But in any event, I'm happy to provide you with that information.
Just 1 minute again. Just to be fair, this is the first time I see this too. Well, it's not the first time. This is the 3rd meeting we have on this. This is a new deal. This is not what was presented a year ago. A year ago was a greater nameplate capacity with a different values and whatnot. I don't need you to address it. No, I don't need you to address it, Mr. D. It was reduced at the request of the planning board. So there are different numbers here that are in this agreement. But this is the agreement that we're looking at. So The agreement that was there a year ago didn't get acted on. This is the agreement we're looking at. We've been looking at it for 3 weeks, or 3 meetings. It's not new to us now. This is what we're trying to come to agreement on. I don't care what they had a year ago. It doesn't really matter to me. This is the one I have in front of me now. This is the one I'm dealing with. Mr. Ozowski.
I want to make 2 points. One, you just made for me, that there may have been a discussion that started some time back, but I'm not aware of any decision that has been made as it relates to these agreements. There is a overlay district in place, and whatever discussions might have happened as in the lead up to that are separate and apart from your decision, in my view. I'm not a voting member here, but I think that's clear. So you need to have the information that you need, and we'll do all that we can to be able to get you that as an administration. To that end, I think it's important to point out that one of the things that, as it relates to, and again, we'll take the direction and pursue any information that you feel that you need to support the solicitor in his pursuit or any other means. But I'm going to go back to the beginning of some of these things. The reason that OER took a position in this as it relates to taxes is because the overall cost of these projects do not work unless they're subsidized. So it is our rates, our electric energy rates, that are allowing these things to go forward and be created. The OER, I think, and it would be better if they spoke for themselves, but it's my understanding that they stepped in because they saw some of these things. For example, our first project in town had a tax treaty that had a value of, I think, $18,000 or $19,000 per megawatt for the tangible tax replacement, if you will. And it was one of 10 or 12 that maybe a little bit more, but something on that order, that OER looked at and said, hey, wait a minute, these things are all over the place. And ultimately what they're looking at is that it's the ratepayers that are putting this money into the system to subsidize these projects. So my understanding is it was a state level decision that there was need to simplify the process and make it more transparent to be able to encourage the development of the systems. That's I think how the process came to be the $5,000 per megawatt. And the initiative to change that, it may work, may not, but I just think that it's important to recognize that the energy that came into the system came from a perspective of, wait a minute, this all goes back to the ratepayers. Hope that helps.
I have a question because now I'm getting confused. I understand the 5,000 and the 2,000. I thought what Mr. Walensky was looking at is Mr. Ferris' taxes going up. That's what I'm thinking. That, okay, the landowner has to deal with the new assessment if it changes or a new classification of his land, which doesn't really affect you. And that's where I thought he was going with that. And then we went into this whole legislative $5,000. So that's where I'm confused. I'm looking, which I think he was looking, can we reassess Mr. Ferris' property at a higher rate or different classification? And it has nothing to do with this.
Can reassess each property?
Yes.
As long as you don't reassess everybody's property. So if it's rural residential, whatever zone it may be,
Right.
everybody in that zone gets reassessed. You're allowed to reassess the town. So that's any other piece of property.
Can we
reassess. So right
reclassify?
now, every year you will reassess his property. You can't change his property to commercial, because that's what the $5,000 that we're giving you is really paying that, changing the property. So if you change the property to commercial and then reassess that, then that would be against the agreement and our opinion against the legislation, and that's what we are litigating. But if property taxes go up every single year, Mr. Ferris' taxes keep rising with everybody else's.
All right.
Then your fixed number is for the manufacturing assets.
All right.
Fixed 7,000.
Were we not at one time looking for that land to become commercial property?
But absolutely, so when we're done, the intent the council had last year was 25 years, that if you developed it into commercial, at that time, the solar array goes away, this tax treaty goes away, and you wouldn't change the valuation of the property as a commercial industrial park. At that time, this tax treaty does not take into effect taxing after the solar array is decommissioned.
But why would we
decommission
change it
20
to-
years, and you use the intent there, if you don't mind me, the intent was, is we're going in and we're doing what's called a site work, and we're grading the site, and one of the reasons why developing these projects, like Dowling Village, are so difficult is because you have a large cost capital on land development, so it's a rock. So the intent is the other benefit that the town gets, or the developer of the property gets, this piece of property, when we remove the solar array, you have a structural piece of property that can be developed at that time. So there'll be parking lots and drainage, but the majority of the site work is already completed. The intent is in 25 years when we leave, if there was somebody that wanted to come in with a big box or some type of commercial, the town would have this property. So all this program right now is a placeholder to secure the property for some type of development in the future. And originally, this area was going to be a commercial industry. So now we're installing solar, you're getting a 25-year placemat on it, and 25 years from now, if you change the use and build commercial on it, then you would be able to change the taxes at that time. Correct.
Okay.
I think that was a long answer. I hope you got it.
No, but I just felt it was getting really complicated that we were trying to change what you were willing to pay the town, where I don't think that was the question. I think it was really about the landowner and the assessment on his property. And could it be reclassified? Or if not reclassified, it will go up with the revaluations.
I think there are a couple things in play. Number one is previous council created the solar overlay district, in which made the tax stabilization agreement a player in the game. In the bigger picture, we all know that commercial manufacturing is exempt from tax. This was the state's way, I think, to address that. If this was commercial real estate, manufacturing electricity, all of that solar array would be exempt from the tax. You would only get commercial land value, no value on a tangible tax. This was done to kind of create a steadier stream of tax that made rates reasonable and whatnot. Whether we can reclassify the land, I don't know. I'm not here to question that. That's not what I don't see as part of this agreement. This agreement is setting that $5 in the premium in the rate for 10 years with a 10-year extension with termination, and then there's a development agreement, which is a separate entity part of this thing. And we have nine tax stabilization agreements because he's broken this down into 9 different LLCs.
And if I could just add that.
So wait, can I just go real quick? Because I don't want to change subject on something that he just said, Mr. DePasquale. So he had said that the purpose of this was a placeholder for commercial development 25 years down the road. So one, I didn't know that. Never news to me. So that's why I think as I would like to personally see us slow down on this project. I think this is moving a little too fast, and I think, we need to be more due diligent. But also, and if I'm jumping ahead, I'll pause and come back. But in the decommissioning agreement, it says that you will return the condition to as close to pre-leased property as possible. So why would there be a parking lot? Wouldn't you be putting trees and grass and seed and all that good stuff? Not a building?
The whole solar array is a meadow. So the solar return existing conditions mean everything above grade gets removed, the solar panels, the I-beams, the transformers, all that gets removed, and then you have a pasture. So back to original condition means you'll have a pasture on the whole thing. What you said as one of the council members is what I recited to you of what the property was going to be done is because I learned that from the previous council and the planning board, why we discussed this project. So that was brought to us, that this area was going to be used for commercial, was the town's intention for commercial.
Yes. Commercial development, manufacturing, you're absolutely right. Thank you for saying that.
And so I just didn't want the council, anybody from the council to think that it was our idea to do it. But one of the big drivers of this agreement is when we leave, we've done $15 million of site improvements on the underlying property that will help the next developer or somebody to come. That was the intent of what we were explaining there.
And I think what he was just trying to tell you is not that he's going to put a parking lot, it's that there would still be some things needed for development of a big box store, such as a parking lot, but only creating a tremendous amount of site work and value could already be.
That'll follow up on the development agreement, because I have a lot of questions on there too.
I'm asking questions. I'm asking questions just because there's a lot of paper to read this weekend. So.
Yeah, so if I may, Mr. President, so I was working page by page, and if you go to page 3,
Well, before we jump ahead, is everyone all set with page 2 then? Yeah. So we can move forward.
so Mr. Galuzzi, on page 3, the tax status number 5, there's similar language on page 2 of the development agreement. So if you can just make sure that that is in sync, that'd be great.
I just want to make sure that the council, my direction is clear. The council wants to make sure that they have the option to potentially be classified as entering into that controversial situation, or just agree that the property underlying real estate will only be increased tax with other similarly situated underlying property. If that's the distinction we're discussing. So reclassification because of the solar array, in their mind, they wouldn't agree to that disagreement. And if you want that, then we need to let them know that, so we won't waste time doing it and having Mr. Massini saying he doesn't want to do it.
This council is looking to make sure that should any ruling by the state in state statute change, we're not bound to make that change. That's what this one's looking for. And I just wanted to make sure that I understand right now that land value changes, the assessment can change on the land. But we can't change the assessment on the land because he put solar on it. Unless there's a different ruling that's being argued right now at the state level. So I just don't want us to not have that option. That's what I'm looking at. If that option is there, that is granted, I don't want to bargain it away, so to speak.
So if I can just assist with that, the tax stabilization agreement, if all you were doing is what OER and the statute provides, which is the 5,000 a megawatt, you don't need a tax stabilization agreement. We don't have to have a contract to memorialize the law. The only purpose, and I think I mentioned this the last time I was here, of the tax stabilization, and for that matter, the development agreement, other than the additional language we added at your request on the escrow, is to give the town more money. It's the extra 2,000 a megawatt every year. It's the one-time payment of 5,000 a megawatt, which is another $200,000. So to just reiterate what I think Mr. Igliozzi was saying, is if the town is saying, well, we don't want to be bound by, we expect the developer to pay us all these extras, but we don't want to be bound by what's in this agreement with respect to property taxes, I would agree with Mr. Igliozzi. I just don't think we have an agreement. We couldn't have an agreement to pay more and hope for the best on litigating later. It wouldn't make any sense. Then we're just back to whatever the law requires, it requires. So that's really the reason for these agreements. They're really to benefit the town. It's to give more than the law requires to the town.
Mr. Rossini, thank you for explaining that, but I feel better understanding that the town has sought input from the other towns and currently going through the legal process, as well as the town solicitor go take a look at it as well. Now, I don't want to belabor the beat on this because there's other things I think that I would like to talk about in this tax stabilization understanding. If we go to page 4, I don't recall that this town council passed it and signed the agreement. However, even if we did, President Vadenais brought up a very salient point by saying that the whole deal has changed. The megawatt has changed, a lot of things have changed. And if you look on page 4 of the tax stabilization, pretty much boilerplate contractual. Number 10, supersede entire agreement binding effects amendment. This agreement supersedes all prior negotiations and agreement, whether written or oral, between parties. So that, I mean, there's really no solid ground to say the previous council said this because a couple things happened. The whole deal changed. And I'd like to thank Mr. Vadenais for pointing that out. If we could, Solicitor Glios, if we go to page 5, on determination, I'm going to need an explanation here. Number 2, the property owner of the land, of the leased land, does not then purchase the project from the project owner and take assignment of this agreement. Well, I'm not sure what that all means. Could somebody explain that to me?
Basically, it's just saying that in order for the operator of the facility to operate, they either have to have a valid lease for the land or they have to own the land. So what this is saying is if their leasehold rights end and they don't also own the land, then they can terminate. And then we added at the council's request the language that, but we can't terminate until Green has complied or the Iron Mine Company has complied with the decommissioning requirements.
Okay, yeah, I see the red, but if I read it, I'll understand it. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, this agreement may be terminated by the project owner or its successors or assignees on 30 days written notice to the town. A, if project owner or its successors or assignees, the leaseholder's interest in the land is discontinued. Project owners discontinued, right? If the project owner or successors or assignees do not then own the leased land, or the property owner of the leased land does not then purchase the project from the project owner to take assignment of this agreement. It looks like there's a number of exit strategies that are here, and I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with them.
I mean, I'm happy to work with you or the solicitor around that. I would tell you, all it's saying is there has to be continuity of land control and operation of the project. So either the developer buys, the operator of the project buys the land from the landowner, or leases the land from the landowner, or flip it the other way.